so today we're going to be working on our little Mabco short block crate engine here. It's a small block 302 roller engine, and we've just been working through it and doing some of the stuff on camera. But anyway, we got a XE266HR roller cam bump stick in here, which is a comp unit, and any good camshaft manufacturer is going to go ahead and provide a cam card when you buy a cam. So and you definitely need this to go ahead and degree in your camshaft. So some of the reasons that we go ahead and do this is we just want to make sure our valve train events are happening when we expect them to happen, and in that way our engine performs how we expect it to perform. So anyway, without further ado, I guess we're going to jump into it really quick here. This is just my my camshaft degree kit that I got through comp a couple years back. I kind of splurged. There are cheaper kits, but this kit, which I'll drop the link in the description below, is pretty nice because it uses this larger wheel, which makes it a lot easier to see your degrees, and you'll see as we work through this process just how important that is. So I guess with that, let's get after this thing. Alright, so first things first, we want to get our timing pointer on here, which you can use a coat hanger. This kit actually came with a pointer that I went ahead and bent, but you want to make sure that's good and secure, because if that moves around, obviously that's going to mess with your reading. So, and then we have down here our crank sprocket, which is super nice. I highly recommend using these when you're doing anything with precision measurements with the crankshaft. So anyway, we're just going to just loosely throw it on there, hold this guy out of the way, and again we're just going to go ahead and at the moment we're going to loosely put this on here. It's not necessarily important yet. Now what we want to do, get my wrench down here, what we want to do is go ahead and find true top dead center of this engine first, and we'll go through that process. So the first thing is I need to install my piston stop on the top dead center compression stroke, or rather just below. So if you give me a minute here, right now it's on the intake stroke where our lifter on the intake is coming up. So there we go, the intake closes, and now we're coming up on our compression stroke. So I'm going to let that hang out right there for a second. Alright, so getting our piston stop all installed here, and the significance of the piston stop will become very apparent here shortly, but basically we want to find top dead center, and we need this so we can stop our piston before it reaches its full travel, or I guess TDC, because we want to find true top dead center to be able to gauge our valve events. And the piston will have a dwell point where the crankshaft will continue to turn, where that connecting rod will roll over center, and with that dwell it would be hard to find true top dead center without doing it in this way. So let me get that bolted down. So getting this tightened down here, basically all it is a strap across the cylinder head mating surface on my block, and it's just got a little set screw that protrudes slightly from the bottom of this strap and stops that piston before it's able to reach top dead center. So what we're going to go ahead and do is rotate the engine clockwise, and now we have reached our piston stop. And for the sake of the math, which again you'll see here in a bit, I'm going to go ahead and move my degree wheel to on our intake side of our degree wheel. Set this guy down. I'm going to go ahead and move this to 90, and I want to get right in front of it so I can be sure of my degree. We want to make sure that this is good and tight. We don't want that degree wheel walking around on us. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is rotate the engine counterclockwise until we again meet this piston stop. There we go. And we want to go ahead and have a look here at our degree. So at this point we're at 51, 52, 53 degrees. And now I'll break out the notebook just to break this down exactly what I'm doing with the math from this point. Alright, so as you saw, our first value is 90, and then our second value was 53 degrees. And what we're going to go ahead and do is add 90 plus 53. So clear this out. 90 plus 53 equals 143, and then we're going to divide that by 2, and that gives us 71.5. So on our degree wheel as it's set right now, our true top dead center is at 71.5 degrees. So now what we want to go ahead and do is loosen our piston stop and remove it. So now with our piston stop removed, we can go ahead and again turn our crank past the point where that piston stop would have been. So basically what were we looking for? 71.5 degrees. So now we're at 71 and just a little far. And one other thing to consider when you're doing all your valve train events is you want to be turning clockwise whenever you go to your measurement. So if you go past something, you want to go ahead and back up like I did here, and again we're going to turn it clockwise until we get everything in the right area. And in doing that, you account for a lot of the slack that you could have in your tools, your timing chain, and that would just give you false measurements. But anyway, at this point we're at 71.5 degrees. And you'll see that the piston is at top dead center. And another thing here, this just goes to show why I use the larger degree wheel, because look how hard it would be to see half a degree on this guy. And you know, with this smaller wheel, it would be very easy to get off by a degree or two. And if you're looking to be exact and you're only going to advance or retard your cam by 2 degrees, you can see where you'd have issues there. So this guy is really nice. So at this point, we got our piston at top dead center, and now we can go ahead and loosen our degree wheel since we know we're at top dead center, and make that point that was just with our from our measurements we took. Now we know we're at top dead center, and we can lock our degree wheel in at 0. So there we go, perfect. And now at this point we can accurately get a reading on our valve train events. Alright, so at this point you're going to need your dial indicator. So if you haven't installed that yet, you want to go ahead and do so. One thing to keep in mind with the setup of these guys is you want to make sure you run on a parallel plane with whatever you're measuring, which in this case is our lifter. So we have it on a nice flat surface and we're running nice and parallel, so we're not getting any I guess measurements in error. So I'm confident that's set up well. This unit came with my CompCam's degree kit, and it's a very nice unit for the job. So I know someone is going to mention this, and I just want to go ahead and show that my dial indicator mounting bracket body is not touching my block. And I want to emphasize that you don't ever want to have any of this assembly, you know, touching things that it shouldn't. It can throw off your readings. So it's close here, but we're good, and we're not going to encounter any issues with that. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate the engine clockwise, and basically what we're looking for is max lift here on our intake valve. So we're just going to watch our dial indicator go around and around. I don't have any valve springs, so whenever I'm closing this guy down, I have to kind of hold some resistance on it to keep my dial indicator traveling properly. So anyway, we're gonna bring it up here, and just like the lower rotating assembly, the camshaft is also going to have a dwell point. So it dwells here at about 41 degrees, and now we're going to go ahead and make that our 0, which gets kind of awkward here with how this dial indicator is set up. Move these guys out of the way. There we go. Alright, so at this point it's time to break out the cam card. So on this XE266HR comp cam, we have an intake center line here of 108 degrees, and basically what that is through the highest point of the lift on the cam, that should correspond to 108 degrees on the crankshaft concerning its rotation. Now, just like the piston has a dwell point, as does our lifter here on our cam, it's the same scenario. When it's on the tip of the lobe, it's going to go ahead and dwell. So we're going to go ahead and check this at 50 thousandths on either side of our maximum lobe lift. So as you remember, we found roughly our maximum lobe lift and set that to our 0 point on our dial indicator. Now I don't know how hard this is to see it with our camera angle, but I kind of made a mark here where 50 thousandths is on the crank. So anyway, we're going to go through and just verify our intake center line is correct. So working through this guy, I just want to display that this is roughly our highest point on the cam here, but as you see, as we work through it, it's going to reach a highest point and it's going to go down the backside. But as you can see, as I keep turning my arm, it does have that dwell point. So anyway, we want to work clockwise through this guy here just to keep everything nice and consistent. And if you do go past it, you're going to want to go ahead and go back and recheck. So if we can just kind of give her a little bump. There we go, that worked out just perfect. And again, you know, I don't have any valve train, so I got to put some pressure on our lifter. So now, if we go ahead and look at our crank, we are at 140, 45, 46, 47, 48 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and write that measurement down. So now I'm going to try and throw this at a different angle so you all can kind of see, or I guess have a better idea of what I'm doing. So looks like that number we got there was the back side of the lobe. So let's find our lift point. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going counterclockwise. It's kind of difficult to show from this angle. There we go. So we're going to go well past the point, I guess. But again, we just want to do everything clockwise on the engine to be consistent. I'm just going to try and go nice and slow. Again, if you go past it, you're going to want to stop and take it a few thousandths before and just try again to hit the 50 thousandths. All right, so now we're at 50 thousandths, and we got that value by working through the crankshaft again clockwise. So taking a look at our degree wheel here, we're at 65, looks like 64 degrees, right on the money, more or less. So we're going to go ahead and record that value and work through the math again. So if you remember, our first value was 148 and our second value was 64. So we want to go ahead and add 148 plus 64, and then take that value and divide that value by 2. So here we go, 148, the trusty old phone calculator, plus 64 equals 212, and then we're going to divide that number by 2, and that gives us 106. Alright, so taking a look at our cam card here, if you remember, we have an intake center line of 108 degrees, and our math came out to 106 degrees. So if you think of it on a 360 degree spectrum, 106 degrees is going to come up before 108 degrees. So our camshaft degreed out to be 2 degrees advanced. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and leave it how it is. Now, reason being, this is a brand new fresh build and it's a street motor, and this camshaft is going to be on here for a long time, and as that camshaft wears, it's going to get a little slack in it, and it's going to over time the timing is going to be retarded as that chain loosens. So in this case, I'm all right. I'm happy with it. I'm going to leave it. Now, if this was a race engine, or if you were already 2 degrees retarded and you want to get everything back to where it's supposed to be, I highly recommend this Cloy's kit over here, which I always keep on the shelf just in case. So it allows you to adjust in 2 degree increments. It's about double the cost of the stock, or I guess it's not a stock unit, but of the more budget-friendly unit. Now, they're both true roller units, so they're really the same, but this one just offers a little bit more adjustability, and it's machined to just a little bit more precision tolerances. This guy here is more like what we have on the front of our engine, and we only get 4 degrees of advance or retard on that guy. Now, if you would go ahead and degree up a camshaft like we did here, and then you decide that you want to throw on a different timing chain, you're going to want to recheck everything, because whatever slop is in that timing chain from the factory is going to affect your measurements. So at this point, I'm happy with what I'm seeing, and the last thing I want to go ahead and check here is my intake and exhaust duration at 50 thousandths lift on this engine. So let's go ahead and do that now. So picking up where we left off here, I'm going to rotate the engine backwards and bring my lifter back to the base circle of the cam. So now what I'm going to do, as you see here, as we rotate the engine, we're not getting any movement on our dial indicator, so we're on the base circle. And I'm going to go ahead and make that point there. Get these guys out of the way. And go ahead and make that point again 0. And now we're going to go ahead and rotate the engine, and again, just like how we found the center line, we're going to go ahead and check on 50 thousandths here lift on either side of the cam lobe. So just go around, and we're already coming up. And again, you always want to turn clockwise. See if I can get it to stop. That's too lucky. Stopped right on 50 there. So now I want to go ahead and take our measurement on the degree wheel. And it looks like about 1.5 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and record that and then check the other side of our lobe. Alright, now we're going to keep rotating the engine clockwise. And it's really nice to also turn things clockwise here, because you can always remember exactly where you're at. So now we're going to keep going clockwise, and we're going to let this lifter travel all the way back down. Looks like it's got one more rotation in it. So there, we've gone past 50. It should have its dwell point at 0 there. So now we're going to go back, and again we're going to go past 50 because we want to take up any of that play in the timing chain, and then now come back to 50, and this should be the other side of our lobe. See if we can get it perfect. Apparently now we just seem to have the magic touch there. We can drop it right on 50. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at our degree wheel here, and it looks like we're going to step back here. One thing I want to go ahead and explain is you want to either start from, on this process, 0 or 180, and depending on which one you're closer, you want to count to your degree mark from that point. So this is going to be 10, 20, 30, 34, as you see there. So you kind of want to just count your graduations off, but you don't want to pay attention to your numbering if you're closer to your 180 side. So that's 34 degrees. So again, let's go work through our math. So we have 1.5 degrees and 34 degrees, and we're going to go ahead and add those together. So 34 plus 1.5, and then we're going to add 180 to that, and that's going to give us our duration at 50 thousandths lift. So, and we'll go back and check the cam card in a second, but to pop our calculator out here, so that is my fingers are so cold here in Iowa. It's 1.5 plus 34 equals 35.5 plus 180 equals 215.5. So let's go look at our cam card and verify. Alright, so looking at our duration on our intake valve at 50 thousandths lift, we should see 216 degrees, and if you remember from the math, we had 215.5 degrees, and that half a degree is really inconsequential. It's not going to have any ill effects. It could even be on human error there. So at this point, I'm confident that our camshaft is what we expect it to be, and we can continue with our build confident that it's right. Alright, so as you saw, our camshaft agreed up nicely, and with meeting manufacturer specifications, I'm sure it will perform as we expect, and this should be a decent little street engine. I'm looking forward to getting it done, and I guess putting it in whatever we decide to put it in. But with the temperatures here in central Iowa right now, being 5-10 degrees, I'm not really confident in putting any gasket sealer on it, so we're kind of on hold right now. But digging around the garage here, I found this old timing chain that came off the solid lifter 289 that used to run in the old Galaxy, and I pulled it off and replaced it at a certain point because it had gotten pretty sloppy, and I could tell that it was affecting the performance. So now that we know what this camshaft agreed up to, I might pull this timing chain off and install this guy, and we'll just see how out of whack our valve train events get with a sloppy timing chain. So that'd be pretty interesting. So if you want to see that again or anything else, just drop a comment, or if this didn't make sense or whatever, and we'll see what we can do. So with that, I guess we're going to continue on with our build and keep moving right along.